All right, welcome to another Pro Football Doc podcast, post week 3, except for Monday Night Football, and pre-week 4. We're going to break out new format for the podcast this year. Number one, we're on Outkick and their podcast network. We're going to have it up on Periscope and Twitter here. We're going to break it down into 2 sections, a deep dive section and a injury rundown section, easier to access and scroll through this way. The deep dive, the topic we're going to be talking about today is why John Lynch is smarter than I am. Trust me, I know. Don't worry, we're not going to take 3 hours. There's probably 5 hours of reasons why he's smarter than I am. But the 49ers have something special going, and we'll talk about why despite all their injuries. That'll be our deep dive topic, as well as the turf and all the injuries around the league. But this first segment here, really no questions. We're going to go through some things. But the second segment, when we do the player rundown, we'll invite lots of questions. And of course, we'll have our usual Beast of the Week feature, which is a good one this week. So why is John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan smarter than me? Probably 10,000 reasons. John Lynch is a Stanford graduate. Full disclosure, I know John Lynch. I knew him as a player. He's a San Diego area kid. I know his family a little bit. He's as smart as they come, as humble as they are, and I have the utmost respect for him. But after this week, even higher respect for John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, who I don't really know very well. But let me tell you why. If you go to some of the things that I wrote this week, and I'll show you here on the computer, let me flip to the computer here, and for example, at Outkick here, the articles, we talk about the injuries, and we look back, and what we see is really what I told you on Sunday morning. We were 4-1, 4 good hits. So there were top 5 actionable NFL injury things. We can go over them, but quickly here. Tampa Bay at Denver with an A- versus a C+, and the Tampa Bay being much healthier than the Broncos, with the 2 best offensive players, Courtland Sutton and Drew Lock, out. The 2 best defensive players, Von Miller and A.J. Boye, out. Easy win for Tampa Bay. The 49ers and Giants here. The 49ers are way more injured, and we'll get back to that, yet they prevailed, and we'll come back to that one. Cincinnati at Philadelphia, once again, another full letter grade difference. Cincinnati B+ versus C+ for the Eagles. You can see the Eagles' defensive injuries and their slew of offensive injuries, which we'll go over, actually got worse with Deshaun Jackson. But the Bengals hung with the Eagles, and the Eagles did struggle. Chicago at Atlanta, predicted a high-scoring game with all the Atlanta defensive problems, with an A- Chicago Bears grade and a B- Atlanta Falcons health grade. Now remember, this is health only, not scheme, not talent. It's health only, not scheme, not talent. And so what we're trying to do is point out some of the unforeseen injury issues that might affect a line or a prop wager or a fantasy projection. That's what we're trying to do here. And back to the computer, the 5th one we talked about was Tennessee at Minnesota, and we said it was going to be a high-scoring game here, and might be some points scored from both sides, 31 and 30 points, easily the over. And we even talked about the Jets' lack of offensive firepower down here, which was very evident, and the Cowboys' offensive line still not healthy, and the the Seahawks bested the Cowboys in the end there. In any case, let's go back to the San Francisco 49ers and why John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are smarter than I am. Look at this injury index and field view. A grade difference overall. Offense, the 49ers more healthy. Defense, the Giants more healthy. You look at the Giants against the 49ers, obviously Jimmy Garoppolo out, Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman out, George Kittle out, Deebo Samuel still out, Brendan Ayuk still coming back, although he had a nice game. All these injuries here. The Giants really just with David Mayo as the main out. On defense, Nick Bosa out, Solomon Thomas out, Dre Greenlaw out, Richard Sherman out, D Ford out, and really Nate Solder was an for the Giants as an opt-out is the only one, and of course Saquon. So no question overall the 49ers were much healthier. So the assumption is the line took care of that, took care of scheme and players, but the defense, the injuries would derail the 49ers. And I was dead wrong. The 49ers have enough depth, scheme, and coaching to overcome the slew of injuries. They have 10 players that are in injured reserve. Through a typical season, the average is 10. We're in week 3. The 49ers have 10 players on injured reserve, yet they dominated that game and made me look bad in my prediction here. This is why hats off to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. Admittedly, the 10 IRs might be higher because it's only a 3-week IR injured reserve this year, and the likes of Tevin Coleman can come on and come off, so to speak. And they did it not pushing their luck. If they really needed, George Kittle could have played, but they played it smart and they rested George Kittle because they're aligned with him with the big new contract. They're married. They're tied with George Kittle's long-term health. So John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan really did the right thing and proved me wrong and made me look bad with my injury assessment. The injury assessment and their injury grade is, I still think, very correct. The difference is they were able to overcome. And you could say, I don't have anything to do with that because I'm just talking injuries. And if you want to be a purist, I could say, well, gee, I was right. But I led you all down the wrong path there because I thought the injuries would catch up to them this week. I thought the entire week on the road would catch up to them, make them road weary with different COVID precautions, eating to-go food. Look, how many of you like eating to-go food under current COVID conditions versus being able to be at home and get the food that you want and sleep in the own bed that you want? But Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch turned it into a positive where their team was resolved to play well, despite the turf scares that they had at MetLife Field. And they really killed it. And so hats off to them for knowing their team, knowing what their team needs, and taking the risk to stay the week in West Virginia. So it's not like they stayed in New York or the New Jersey area. They actually got on a plane and flew to West Virginia, maybe an hour, instead of the 4.5 hours home on a charter, and made the whole week work. By the time you add in bus rides and everything else, it wasn't that big of a difference. But I would love to sleep in my own bed instead of a hotel room, but the 49ers made this work, and they obviously know their team. Mentally, they got their team ready with the turf issue, and there weren't a lot of new injuries this week. Thankfully, we'll talk about that. But they obviously know their team. Look, last year, they requested the East Coast trip. They started the season in Tampa. They stayed in Ohio and then played the Bengals. And they started 2-0 on their way to the Super Bowl. They averaged a total of 44.5 points last year. This year, due to scheduling, they're playing the Jets and Giants on the road. And they requested the league to have the back-to-back games. And they plan to stay out there. This is even before the pandemic came. And obviously, they know what they're doing. I might have advised against it. But they scored 31 points against the Jets and 36 points against the Giants. And with all these injuries, weathering all these injuries. So the 49ers have it going. I tip my cap to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and company. They know way better than I do. And this slew of injuries that would have derailed a lesser team did not derail them at all. And look, we'll talk about it, but I think Kittle likely comes back. Garoppolo's not far away. They're exiting their injury woes right now. And so 49ers are looking good. As far as the turf issue is concerned, there are now 21 ACLs this season, league-wide so far as of this posting. In the previous 5 years, there's an average of 25 ACLs before week 1. So technically there's actually fewer ACLs this year, but remember, preseason or training camp had no games and was really only half as long because the first 3 weeks were just getting through the COVID protocols mostly and getting up to speed. So that's why you're seeing a lot of the hamstring injuries now. If you had a full 6 weeks of preseason, those hamstrings injuries might have been hidden within the 6 weeks of preseason, and players from acclimation would be healthier week 1. But now, through week 3, this is probably the normal start of the regular season, so to speak, if you did it by timing. Week 4 coming up because of the 6-week acclimation period for soft tissue injuries. So injuries in general, at least by gross count of ACLs, are lower. By hamstrings affecting the regular season are higher. And that's because I think the injuries got pushed into the regular season. So there's a quick summary. As far as the turf is concerned, didn't seem to be an issue for the 49ers. Maybe they changed shoes like we talked about to make the turf less sticky. Thankfully, we did not get any serious injuries. Of course, there was Jordan Reed's ankle inversion sprain, which is not a foot stick in the ground high ankle sprain, so I don't think it had anything to do with the turf. He came back and played, and then he left with a knee injury. Hard to blame that on the turf. There was a concussion in the game. That's hard to blame on the turf. And on the for the Giants, their safety, blanking on his name right now, had a ankle sprain as well. And once again, it was a low ankle sprain, not high ankle sprain. Therefore, once again, hard to blame the turf. So the turf passed inspection. I think the turf is a non-issue right now for MetLife Stadium. And bottom line is, I hope my brother doesn't see this. We have a little friendly rivalry. He's a doctor. He went to that junior university, the same junior university that John Lynch went to, Leland Stanford Junior University. Obviously, I say that in jest. It's Leland Stanford Junior, comma, university named after him, not Leland Stanford, comma, a junior university. But I went to that other university in the East Coast in Boston or Cambridge, and so we give a little shit. A little grief on that. Hopefully my brother doesn't see this, because I'm admitting the Stanford guy was better than the Harvard guy this time, because I doubted the 49ers with their injuries and I was wrong. But the bottom line is, I don't feel too bad, because if you followed my advice all the way and made your own decisions about props and other things, I think there was 4 out of the 5 information put out in that article was pretty good, so we will take that. In any case, I'd much rather have a podcast like this and a deep dive like this than talk about what we talked about last week with the Tyrod Taylor punctured lung news that I think we sort of broke on Monday. And to that effect, Tyrod Taylor is indeed coming along fine, and week 4 this week is iffy. But for sure by week 5, Anthony Lynn will have a decision to make between Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert. Obviously, the Chargers lost to the Carolina Panthers, and Herbert's debut wasn't matched with his second start here, where he took the Chiefs into overtime. So this will wrap up segment 1 of Pro Football Doc Podcast. Coming up next in segment 2, we'll take questions, injury rundown of all positions, and the beast of the week. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you on the other side.